Hey, good morning, everybody. Denise with Lazy K Homestead. Well, here we are at day 7 with our sourdough starter from scratch. If you haven't followed the series thus far, I have day 1 all the way to day 7, and it'll continue to day 9 for our sourdough starter from scratch that you can keep forever. As long as you feed it, keep it in your fridge, and my aunt had it for over 50 years. So it is something that is, I call it a vintage recipe because this is what they would use when they couldn't get any yeast. And if you guys can remember, uh, during the pandemic in 2020, you couldn't get yeast on the shelf. It was crazy. And a lot of people started baking their own bread, just going back to what they knew, self sufficient. Um, in everything so they could feed their families. And it may seem kind of crazy 3 years later because we're kind of back to normal in our grocery store shelves and things, but it can happen again. And I'm not by any means a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I never thought I'd see that. So that's one of the reasons that I am making this series, so we can have our sourdough starter in case you don't have yeast. You can use it in the place of, as I had said before, I do use a packet of yeast with the table sandwich bread that I make sourdough because I think it just gives it a little bit more of a lift. There are recipes out there, and I'm going to research and see if I can't find some more that just use the sourdough starter that are successful. So, anyways, getting back, you know me, I always get off track. I'm really good at that. So, here we are. This is our starter from day 6. Let me put this tripod down. I want you to see inside here. Look at all these nice bubbles. Now, with starter, after you feed it, and that's what we're doing every day because we're feeding this starter and creating a starter that is going to be viable to use in baking. It got all the way up to here, and then it drops back down. That's very normal. Don't be alarmed. I should have said that earlier in my videos, but that is just the way it works. It's going to rise and fall because it is a leavening agent. So please don't be alarmed. Okay, now what we're going to do is smell it, and it does smell like an old stale beer. If you've ever smelled one of them or drove by a brewery, we used to live in Virginia, and Williamsburg had a brewery, and when I'd go to work every day, you could smell the hops and the whatever else they used, but it was very strong. So this smells like an old stale beer. There is nothing in here that leads me to believe that it's moldy or bad. And you always want to do a visual inspection and a scent inspection. Even when you're using your starter that you've had for years, I always look and make sure it's okay. It's just a good thing to do, because you don't want anything bad when you're baking. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and put our scale. Let me put this down here so y'all can see what I'm doing. Put our scale on 0, and we have it on units as grams, and that's what we've been using for this whole series, grams, which says G. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to mix our starter up. Now you may see a little bit of separation in the morning, and it looks like it's a little bit of liquid in there. Unless that liquid is on top, you can just mix it in. If it's on top, that's called hooch. And the hooch is actually an alcohol that is created from the flour and water. It's just natural. And that means it's hungry and it needs to be fed. And you will find that in your starters in your fridge. And if I've got one that's got hooch on, I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pour out 200 grams, just like yesterday, into our new clean ball jar. And I have to be quiet or I'll mess up. Okay, we're at 200. Now we have a lot of pour off there. At this point, you guys, you can use this pour off for something. If you want to add it to pancakes, if you want to add it to muffins, something like that. I wouldn't do bread yet because it's really not ready to be a viable um, leavening agent, but it's almost there. Okay, so here's our 200. I'm going to go ahead and tear back to 0. And now I'm going to add all-purpose flour. And as if you remember yesterday, I changed my flour to all-purpose from the whole wheat. That was clearly a choice that I do. If you want to keep it whole wheat, you can. If you want to keep it rye, you can. Never use self-rising flour because that has things in here that, especially salt, that will kill this starter. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add flour till we get to 200 grams because everything we're doing is equal, 1 to 1 to 1. And if you do go over, you can just go in there and just grab some out with your spoon. Almost there. And I did. Okay, there we are at 200. Exactly. Now, for water, I've already got it put in this little jug here, but it is room temperature distilled water. And like I said, you want to use distilled water or spring water. You don't want to use tap water because it does have chemicals that can affect your starter and it could actually kill it. Whatever the chemicals are in there, I don't know, but it has been proven to do that. So this is at room temperature and my house is 70 degrees, so this is fine. If you want to warm it up for lukewarm, you want to have it warm to where, like if you're sprinkling milk on your wrist for a baby bottle, that's as hot as you want it to go. Okay, so here we are. We're going to tear back to 0 and we're going to pour 200 milliliters or grams of water in here. I'm going to go to Walmart this morning and I'm going to see if I can't find a larger jar while I'm there in my travels. Okay, so here we are. We've got our starter, we've got our flour, and we've got our water. So we are just going to go ahead and mix it up, making sure all the flour is mixed together with the starter and the water, and it's nice and smooth. Now this is a lot looser than it was yesterday because the starter was looser. That does make a difference, but it still is going to be thick once you get finished with that. And I usually just pick my jar up. I pick my jar up and I look at the bottom and I look at the sides because visually you can see if there's any of the flour that hasn't been mixed well with everything. And this has made the starter a lot lighter in color, adding the all-purpose, but that has no problem at all. You'll still see the specks of the whole wheat in there. If you want to keep yours with whole wheat or rye, it'll be a darker starter. So all that is just a visual change. And I'm going to go ahead and mix that again because there was some dry flour or raw flour. Okay, there we go. Let me get another spatula. I say this every day and I know it's probably driving me all crazy, but I wish I could be a little bit cleaner with this, but starter really isn't something that's clean. Okay, here we are. To make the jar clean, I mean, it's clean. I don't know, I think I've confused myself. Okay, now this is probably going to rise up to here. You see how much is in there? It's nice, and it's already forming bubbles because it is being fed. Let me put this down so you can see the bubbles. See the bubbles in there? That means it's happy. And this is a live culture, if you will. It captures the wild yeast. It's been going through a fermentation process for 7 days now, and it is going to be hungry. Okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to put our lid that I've been using the whole time. right on here, leaving that little air pocket for it to capture the wild yeast, for the air to go in there because that's where it is, and help the fermentation process. Okay, now we're just going to put it over on my stove as I have been under the light. You guys can keep it in a dehydrator in your oven with the light on. If you do that, at this point, I would make sure you have a cookie sheet under it, because if it does rise up, you don't want to get all over your oven. That would be a mess. I may put a plate underneath mine just in case. But let me go in my fridge and see if I've got one of my starters that has hooch on it. Okay, we're in luck. I have a little bit of hooch on it. Now I'm going to bring this down so you can see the inside of the jar. Hold on here. You see that brown liquid in there? It kind of looks gross. That's hooch. And all that is an alcohol that is created from the water and the flour. Now, when you go to feed this, which I'm not going to do today because I just fed it the other day, you're going to go ahead and pour this off. You can pour it off in your trash or down the sink. Normally, it doesn't have any flour with it. It's just a watery substance that's kind of a ugly brown. And you just pour it off, and then you proceed with feeding your starter. And we will probably do that day 9 so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. But guys, that's it for today. Day 7, we're completed, we're done. And tomorrow we will do the same thing for day 8 and 9, and then we will bake bread on day 10. So I'm really excited. I hope y'all are enjoying the series. If you are, let me know. Like, share, and subscribe. And hey, for all my new subscribers, thank you so much for coming along with us. Willis and I are trying to build this channel, and we hope that you will stay with us during our journey. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.